Closed captioning provided by Duca Financial Services Credit Union. Discover more affordable banking at duca.com.
At Listen Up, we love hearing from you. Pop by our website and answer this week's question. How do you talk to your teens about sex? You'll find us at listenuptv.com. And while you're there, sign up and follow us on Facebook or Twitter. Sherry Smith was only 17 when she left home with a man she barely knew. She was quickly immersed in a life of prostitution and drugs and was murdered less than a year later. Sherry's parents, Ed and Linda Smith, join us from Regina. Ed, let's start with you. Tell us what Sherry was like as a little girl.
As a little girl, Sherry was just the most adorable child you could hope for. We'd been married 3 years when Sherry was born. And she was a very compliant, loving child, and yes, we couldn't have been happier to have such a loving little girl in our home.
Linda, something changed along the way. What went wrong?
Yes, in about grade 9, halfway through grade 9, Sherry became very rebellious. She didn't want to communicate with us anymore. She didn't want us involved in her life. She became a partier. She started doing drugs. She was very promiscuous. She asked us for the birth control pill when she was in grade 10. And so we felt like we had lost our lovely little girl.
Tell us what you know about the last months of your daughter's life.
The last 10 months of Sherry's life were spent on the streets of cities of Western Canada, beginning in Edmonton, where she worked as a juvenile prostitute. A young man that she thought she loved turned out to be a pimp and turned her out to turn tricks on the streets of Edmonton. She went from there to Calgary, from Calgary to Winnipeg, to Regina, and from Regina eventually to Victoria, where she lost her life on the street as a juvenile prostitute.
Linda, parents watching this right now are probably asking themselves, how could a lovely girl get sucked into such a tragic downward spiral? What have you concluded about that?
It was 2 years after Sherry died before we found out that back from one of her girlfriends, that back in grade 9, Sherry had been date raped. I don't mean that she was dating, but I mean that one of her friends, her close friends, forced her into a sexual encounter with him. And Sherry wrote in her diary about that situation, diaries which we never read up until that point, that she felt demolished. She felt torn down. She felt like she was of no value anymore. She wasn't worthwhile, that her whole life had been destroyed. And she was suffering from a great deal of emotional pain. And so she started partying at that point and started hanging out with other kids who were hurt, and that life of partying and drugs and sex made her vulnerable to be recruited into prostitution.
And today you guys talk to parents to teach them that our kids need to be equipped spiritually to be able to avoid the fate that your daughter met. Tell us about that.
We realize now, or shortly after we found out about this, that Sherry was believing a lie. She believed that once this rape had taken place, that her life was of no value anymore, that all her hopes and dreams were dashed, that she could not pick up the pieces and go on. And so we have spent a great deal of time teaching parents to protect their children, to teach their children that they're valuable kids, even when bad things happen.
And so what do you do when you suspect your child has had a sexual misconduct that you know must be scarring them emotionally? How do you push into that as a parent? What do you say? What do you do?
They need to know that they will not be judged. They need to know that no matter what happens to them, no matter what they've done, you accept them and you love them unconditionally. And when a child knows that, then they'll be much more likely to be open with you about things that are going on in their life.
What's at the core of healing people emotionally?
For us, the core is our faith in Jesus Christ, that no matter what happens to us, God loves us. that the difficult things that happen to us make us better people when we reach out to God, when we ask for His help in these kinds of situations. And so we've developed a workshop that we teach where we help parents learn how to pray for their kids and how to teach their children that they're valuable even when bad things happen.
All right. Ed and Linda Smith, we're posting more of your views and your material at listenuptv.com. Thank you very much for sharing with all of us from the lessons of Sherry's story and from your insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
When we return, I'll share my personal thoughts on today's teens in the Wrap.